Hey guys, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Creality CR-10 Smart, and this being the latest iteration from Creality as a smart printer. So I am pretty excited to see what this thing's all about. So in this video we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. So hopefully you enjoy the video. Let's get started. Alright, so the CR-10 here comes in this box. It's pretty decent size. They got a little picture here of what it looks like. The box measurements here on the bottom, which is 66 by 57 by 29 centimeters. So yeah, not small, but also not too big. And the weight on the shipping label is 18 kilograms, which is 40 pounds. So yeah, it has a pretty good weight to it. Alright, so let's go ahead and open it up. And this is what we see on top. We do have a page here that shows some kind of cautions saying recommended to use Creality software, and apparently pretty important to have this start a G code. If you want to use another slicer, you could and use the code here. All right, so we got the typical black foam that's soft, very nice. And this is what it greets us. So you guys probably can't see this too well, but I'm gonna go ahead and pull things out here one by one. So we got the manual here, and it is separately wrapped. We got 200 grams of white PLA on a spool, which is really nice. We also get a full kilogram of appears to be white PLA from SainSmart. And by the way, this is where the printer came from. All right, so we got some smaller stuff up here. Looks like the Bowden tube, our AC power cord, decent length. Looks like part of the spool holder. And what's nice about this thing, if you guys can see maybe, but the middle actually rolls separately from the outside part here. So that's kind of like it's got bearings basically. That's very cool. I definitely like that. We also get a spatula. It is somewhat sharpened, so. All right, so this looks like the other part of the spool holder. So Creality's been using this design here on its latest printers, and it works pretty good. We got a rubber foot under here, but this part here is actually metal. It definitely feels a little more robust than usual. So I definitely like this better than the clip-on kind, so yeah. All right, so here we have a couple braces, looks like, and these are for supporting the top of the printer, the gantry, that doesn't wobble around. So this should give us a lot of stability. All right, here we have something pretty cool, which is the, looks like touchscreen display. There's a protective layer on there. Take that off in a bit. But yeah, it looks like a horizontal kind. So I'm pretty excited to see what the UI looks like. And also to mention that it is quite large, so that's nice. All right, so we got a few more things in here. Well, I guess just this, which is our hardware, some bolts. That's pretty much it. And we can go ahead and take this layer off. And you guys probably won't see this, but this thing is packed very well. See if I can tip it over. Foam on the sides and the printer nestled there in the middle with the gantry on top of it. So yeah, very well packed, and it looks like it's pretty much pre-assembled, just the two main parts that we have to connect together. So all right, so let's pull the gantry out. And this is what it looks like. Very nice. Love the attention to detail here on everything. Very cool looking shroud here on the hot end. Smooth faced rails. And you guys can see we have dual Z-axis lead screws. And I guess most importantly, we are tethered here with the belt on the top, which is very important for the dual Z. Very happy to see that. All right, so the base is the last part. Pretty heavy. And very nicely built. Just the initial here impressions is very high quality kind of material. So everything is heavy duty. And it's even thinner than I think I've ever seen before for especially this large printer. And it's got plenty of weight. So we got a mix of metal and plastic construction, but overall feels very solid. And there appears to be a door here in the front too. Okay, there is, and it's actually very large. Not so deep obviously, but wow, look at that. There are some tools and other things. So we get snippers, we get a double-sided 8 and 10 millimeter open wrench, we get the nozzle wrench, a USB adapter to micro SD and whatnot else, full-size SD card, 8 gig, a clean-out needle, looks like extra parts, nozzles, and clips. And we also get a set of hex wrenches or Allen wrenches that are in their own little housing. So that's nice and organized. Very cool. So I love how Creality presents itself, and this tray here is very convenient. Now you could take off the foam here and just kind of, you know, throw everything in there and you'll have a little more room. But if you want to have it organized like this, it looks very nice. Put that back in. But yeah, we're going to take a closer look at all the details here in a bit. Let's go ahead and move it out of the way. And you guys can see the box is empty here, and as usual here for Creality, very well packed. And I think the first thing I want to do, well, let's see if we can do this safely, is I want to flip it around upside down. Maybe like this. And you guys can see the bottom of the machine. And what I want to do is I want to take off this cover here in the back so we can see on the inside the electronics and the power supply. Well, I guess I should have grabbed my tools while they were not upside down. Surprisingly, it all still stays in. I guess it has its own little spot. And actually, one detail I missed was on the back here. You guys can see, but there's a magnet here. It actually magnetizes. So when you close it, I guess the lid stays closed. So really nice attention to detail there. And speaking of attention to details, I know some people think Creality is losing their way and whatnot else, and they're, you know, not innovating as much. You know, yeah, I could feel like that somewhat, especially with a bunch of printers coming out, and they're pretty much all the same. They just have different little features here and there. But I do have to say that it seems like Creality still makes a pretty solid printer whenever they come out with one. And you do have innovation. It's just not big enough, you know, to really be like, wow. Because, you know, if you think about it, 3D printers have been around for a good 5 years of like really good innovation. So we kind of now are being saturated by very many different kinds and brands, and everyone's wanting the slice of the pie, I guess. So it's a little harder to separate yourself, I guess, from everybody else. But me personally, you know, I see a lot of 3D printers. I still really like Creality and feel like they're usually one of the more solid choices these days. But yeah, there's a bunch of little bolts here that I'm going to take out, and hopefully this cover here pops right off. All right, so after taking quite a few little bolts out, well, let's see if this cover comes off. Well, there we go. And it looks like we do have a fan connected to it on one of the ends here. We'll just lay that over. All right, so let's start here with the power supply. So the supply here is Creality branded, which is interesting. It is the slim kind. So it does look pretty much identical, or at least very similar to the Meanwell one, and just branded Creality now. And it is the 350 watt 24 volt. You guys can see how all the connections are nicely routed and crimped. So let's go here from the back. So this is our power input socket. It is fused with on and off switch, and the wires coming out of that. So it looks like we do have the power wire going here through this relay, and this probably has to do with the automatic on and off maybe. Here we can see the Y stepper motor, and yeah, everything is laid out very good. And we have a cut through here for the wires to go to the main board, and they do have little caps here on the ends to keep the sharp edges from cutting the wires. So that's nice attention to detail. Everything is nice and smooth here. So as we continue, we got quite a few things going on here. So we got the main board, and you guys can see the stepper drivers and everything is integrated, which is fine, I guess. Looks like Creality board, obviously. And we can see the version there. So yeah, I'm guessing this is their newer boards, and it is also fused. So yeah, it looks like we have an ARM processor, but it's quite a bit smaller than, you know, the older one. So yeah, this is definitely newer stuff here, it looks like. So here we have another board, and not too sure exactly what this is, but it does look like it's part of the Wi-Fi here because we got some antennas. And there's a SD card in here also. So, and also our network cable plugs into here. So this must be some kind of networking board. And looks like another board here, and appears to be just a power distribution board maybe of some sort, but in any case, yeah, very interesting overall. And we have that large fan that's on the other side that cools off the main board. So yeah, a lot more stuff here than usual we see at Creality. And that's the box here where our tools go in. So it's like a separate little cubby. So yeah, overall it looks pretty impressive and pretty clean for this CR-10 Smart. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid back on and we'll start the assembly. Alright, so the lid is on, and while we're under here, I just want to show you guys these really nice squishy feet. And there's one on each corner that Creality uses. They're like a pretty heavy rubber, but they're also pretty squishy. So yeah, we do have a vent there for that fan and another vent for the power supply. And also you guys can see on each side of the printer, this is where our bolts are going to go through into the gantry, 2 on each side. Alright, so I got it flipped around, and the first thing I'm noticing is what we need to do is adjust the build plate here, or the rollers underneath, because it is completely loose. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take off this build surface, which is a glass. So there's a couple knobs here that release it. Should come right up, I think. Okay, there we go. So yeah, it's literally a piece of glass with a perforated style coating that basically sticks when it warms up, and then as it cools off, makes the prints pop right off. So yeah, usually these work really good. And the best part about it, because it's glass, it's pretty flat. You guys can see we got a pretty large aluminum plate here. And yeah, so what we need to do is we need to adjust our rollers under here. We're gonna need our tool, the open-ended wrench. Hopefully I can show you guys here. It might be a little hard to see, but yeah, you could probably see there's 1, 2, 3 rollers, and there's 3 on the other side. Now the good part is that there's only rollers on the outside of the bed. So, well, I guess that's a good and a bad thing, but I feel like it's a good thing because it's much easier to adjust them than if you had even rollers on the inside, which some printers do, and that gets extremely tricky. So this shouldn't be too hard. We got all adjustable on this side and 2 stationary and 1 adjustable in the middle on the other side. So let's go ahead and start with this side that's adjustable and bring you down so I don't have to raise this thing up. All right, hopefully you guys can see that a lot better. So yeah, we're just gonna spin this first one here until we get some tension. So we're just gonna get close and go to the next one because we're not sure how much, you know, the rest of them need to move. So they're all very loose. Small amount of play, so now we're just going to finesse it, starting here with the back. And basically what you want is you want the wheel to barely squeeze into the channel, because you don't want it to squeeze too hard. If you're going to have too much pressure against the channel, it's going to eat up the wheel real quick because the wheel's plastic. So yeah, that feels pretty good for that one. Let's move on to the next one. Now remember that a little looser is better than too tight. So as long as you have no play on the bed, that's all that really matters. But looser is always better than tighter for these rollers. So yeah, once you get all that adjusted, move it back and forth, make sure everything is smooth and it's not wobbling back and forth. So if everything looks good, then we're done with this. All right, so for the next part, let's grab our manual. We do get some pretty cool Creality stickers, and this is what our manual looks like. So yeah, as usual, very nicely laid out. It tells us here all the parts of the printer, all the included contents, and our assembly instructions. So yeah, it looks like here for the first part, we're going to be connecting the upper frame, which is the gantry, to the base with 4 of the bolts. And the bolts that we're looking for are in this bag, the dark ones. Hopefully you guys can see maybe, but the gantry is literally going to sit right here, and then the bolts are going to go underneath. So let's go ahead and grab it and set it over. Just like that. Now the best way to do this is probably get the side of the printer here off the edge of the table so we can get underneath. Yeah, literally just going off the edge of the table. And now we can grab our bolt and go from the bottom. So this makes it a lot easier. And go ahead and grab my wrench. I can run him down a little quicker. So I'm not going to tighten it yet. I'm just going to snug it barely because we need to go ahead and do the other side. And also it'd probably be a good idea if we look up here, guys, this belt here that connects the two Z-axes, if we can just turn it, you can see the whole gantry can come down, or the X-axis here. And the reason we want to bring it down is because we want the distance here on the bottom between the two rails to be, as close as possible down there before we tighten everything. Because this is where most of our printing is done, we want it to be the most accurate down here. So here, we're just going to lower it down as close as we can down here, or all the way down, whatever. And we'll put the bolts in here. So yeah, this printer is actually not very difficult to put together. This is our main piece here. And just connecting the gantry, and then the rest is more of the smaller things, which shouldn't be very difficult at all. So if you are new to 3D printing and are somewhat intimidated by installation, this one should not be very hard at all. All right, so we can go ahead and tighten this side up really good. So don't go crazy because we do have those braces, but pretty snug. And I'll go ahead and snug up this side. All right, so for the next part, we're going to be installing the pull rods, they call them, which are the braces, and it's quite simple where they go. So here we are looking at one of the sides on the back, and you guys can see there's a thread right there at the end. So this is where it's going to go on one side, and then the other to the top. And this is what the rods look like. So they are adjustable. This is our hardware. We get some longer bolts and shorter ones. The shorter one goes to the top, and the longer ones with the washer go on the bottom here. So yeah, it doesn't look like it matters which side is up. They look to be the same. So if you need to, you can unscrew some thread here. Grab an Allen wrench. Okay, so I think I'm doing this wrong just by looking at it here. I think the washer needs to go on the other side here. So we need to put the bolt through and then put the washer on the other end. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. There we go. So the washer is kind of helping it, not fall through the hole here on the crack. That definitely looks more correct. So yeah, I mean, we're pretty good here. Now, before we go ahead and, tighten it here or anything too much, we need to kind of see if we need to, screw it in a bit or screw it out. But yeah, we just have to work with both ends. So this side looks pretty good. Let's go to the other side, or what I meant to say is to the top here. And yeah, I'm just gonna grab the shorter bolt, and it's gonna go on the outside like this. So the way you want to do this is you want to line this up, as close as possible to that without trying to force it either one way or the other, like pushing or pulling. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna, adjust this part here until we line up perfectly with the thread there. So if you have to, unscrew it also the whole thing from the bottom to go up or down. So depending, how much thread you got on each side. So yeah, it looks like we need a little more here. All right, so that looks perfect. So what you want is this thing to be exactly where it wants to be, and then just connect the brace to solidify that position. So that looks good right there. I'm gonna tighten it up just a little bit here. All right. And we can grab our wrench here and use it to lock the locking nut down so it doesn't unscrew. And same thing down here. Tighten up this bolt all the way, and then lock the nut in. And that's it. We are very, very solid here on this brace. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side exactly the same way. All right, so this is what it should look like, looking here from the back. So yeah, and the printer now is extremely sturdy. So yeah, these things really do help with keeping the top from moving around. All right, so for the next part, it looks like we need to put on the spool holder, and it goes over here somewhere, or right about here. So the spool holder comprises of these two pieces. So the hinge, I believe, goes like this. So basically like this, and then it folds over to tuck away. And so our spool holder part needs to go on this way. So it just twists right on. Pretty simple, and I really love this rolling part of it. Yeah, so we do have two T-nuts here that will go into the channel here on the side that'll hold it. So yeah, we're just gonna loosen the bolts where the T-nuts can move around. And then we're gonna line up the T-nuts into the channel. Might be a little tricky, but if you put them flat, they should go right in. And just like that. So it looks like we need to be on the edge of this channel here with the front edge here of this bracket. So right about here. So yeah, with the T-nuts, we're just gonna unscrew the bolt and then screw it back in, and it should lock it in. Actually quite hard to do with this angle. So yeah, very uncomfortable to try to turn those little bolts with barely any room. So yeah, a little bit inconvenient. Seems like could have been maybe a better way, but all right. So it looks like I pretty much got it now. a little bit of fiddling around, but not too bad. In any case, that seems like about where it goes. So yeah, so you know, our spool is going to go on here, and then it's going to feed into the filament detector here. So as long as it's pretty close, should be good. And unfortunately, we can't fold over, but it does go to the side a bit since it hits this brace here. So no big deal. All right, so our spool holder's on, and this is what it looks like. All right, so for the next part, we're connecting our touch screen. So yeah, this is the touchscreen display here, and it looks like all we got to do is plug in a plug, which is taped here. So that shouldn't be too hard. It's kind of in an awkward place, but not too hard to plug though. So yeah, just like that, and I think it just slides right over these little bolts here. Just kind of an interesting way of doing it. So yeah, it literally just lines up on there and then push it down to lock it in. Very interesting. So not the sturdiest. Yeah, just keep in mind it's easy to kind of bump it. If I just touch it from the bottom, you can see it's already trying to go up. Yeah, I guess as long as you know you don't bump it too much, should be fine. But yeah, this thing looks really nice here up front. All right, guys, and that looks like everything for the assembly part. So I was just talking about plugging everything in here and the power cord, and then we got bed leveling instructions. So yeah, as you can see, not too complicated. Now the next part, a little intimidating, but it's really not because everything plugs in quite simply. So let's just go to the side here first. Well, I guess let's start over here underneath. And maybe you guys can see there, we have the optical sensor. So there's a little wire that comes out. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up a bit. So yeah, some of the wires are taped here on the side. So we got the motor wire, which is that white one. That's going to go to the side here on the back to the motor. But the darker one here goes to the Z-axis sensor. Let's go ahead and plug that in. Maybe tuck it in where it doesn't get in the way of anything. Maybe we can use this tape that was included and just to hold it here on the side. That way it definitely doesn't go anywhere. We don't want it to go. So the motors actually plug in from the inside. Flip it around enough, but let's go ahead and go to the side here, which is where our main wire that comes out from the base here plugs into this junction box. And this is obviously quite simple. Just gonna plug it in and they should match up just like that. And here you guys can probably see the motor plugs a little easier. So there's one here and then one over there. It's gonna plug into the motor, and this other one is taped. Plug into the other side. And actually, maybe we can go ahead and use this tape to keep it down also. All right. So yeah, I think that is everything to plug in. So there's not much to plug in. So not very difficult at all to figure out what plugs in where. And we can go ahead and put our build plate back on. So, whoops, I was about to put it upside down. But yeah, it simply just slides into these little clips in the back. But before we do that, let's go ahead and peel off the protective layer. So yeah, you don't want to touch the build surface here with your hands for sure, especially after building the printer. It's probably got some grease on it. But yeah, it just sits in like that, and then these little locking clips lock in the bed, and simple as that, it is on. So yeah, that was a pretty easy assembly, I would say. Quite easy to put together. Now, looking at it, I totally forgot that we never looked at the rollers here on the gantry, so they actually feel pretty good. And this one is a little tight on this side, and on the, yeah, and the hot end is completely loose. So let's go ahead and adjust that real quick. And the way these rollers adjust is there's an eccentric nut on the inside here. And so this one actually feels good. This one is too tight, so I'm just gonna loosen this side a little bit, see what happens. All right, that feels a lot better. Better tension. So yeah, the best way to gauge is you got to be able to spin the rollers stationary. If they're too tight and you can't spin them, you got to loosen them up just a bit. But yeah, on the gantry here, going up and down, it's okay to be a little tighter because they don't move up and down, you know, a lot compared to, let's say, the y-axis constantly going back and forth and the x here. So yeah. All right, so I'm happy with that. Let's go to the hot end. It's completely loose. So the eccentric nut is on the bottom. So we're going to tighten it up a bit here. Okay, that's too tight. Back off just a bit. There we go. And that feels perfect. So you want there to be friction, and you can still spin the roller. That's the main thing. If you can't spin the roller, that means you're way too tight. Now we're going to check it. All right, and that feels really smooth. And there's obviously no wobble. So there we go. So that's how you adjust rollers. Not too hard, but you know, if you're confused, take your time until you get it right, because this is quite important to get good print quality and, you know, long life out of these parts here. All right, so let's take a closer look at the CR-10 Smart, and you guys can see it's a very large printer, or pretty large, and it's filling up this desk pretty much front to back, and it is quite tall also, so keep that in mind. It is a pretty nice looking printer. Looks very polished and has a nice aesthetic to it. So let's start here at the top. We can see we got a Creality logo. Very nice finish on the front of the channels. Smooth. A lot of pieces are metal and pretty heavy duty, like these brackets here. Flipping the printer around, we can see the back side, little guides here with bearings in them. That's for the lead screw. And also you guys can see there is a gear here for the belt, and that's to tether the two lead screws together. And that is very important for a dual Z-axis setup. You definitely want to have this belt, so very happy to see that. We can see the braces that we installed. They go all the way down to the back here, and it definitely makes the printer very stable, so the top doesn't move back and forth pretty much at all, so it's very solid. So let's go ahead and go down from there. We can see that these brackets here are metal, and we got brass bushings. Same thing on this side, but here we have the extruder assembly, and this is the mechanism that Creality uses. It's one of those interesting kind that kind of like move the whole top. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's moving the whole top here back and forth. So I think like this it's locked in, and like this you open it up to feed it through. I remember this Creality CR6 had this, and I had some trouble with it, so we'll see how this one goes. So we got the extruder motor underneath, and on top here we have the filament detector, and it does have a brass fitting inside, so that's nice, not gonna wear out. You guys can see the junction box here is completely covered, injection molded plastic. Very nice attention to detail. This is our X-axis motor here, and this really nice cool looking cover. It covers up the gearing here. Going down from there, we got the two Z-axis motors. And looking down, we can see the rails is made out of two pieces, 3 rollers on each side that compressed around, and that's how the bed holds itself. Our Y-axis end stop switch, the Y-axis motor with the gear under there, the adjustments on the other side. We'll take a look at that in a second. Very nice strain relief on the heated bed wire here that comes out and then goes right into the body. We have a nice solid frame there for the bed assembly, and it is a heated bed, but it is not insulated, so it might take a little longer because of the size, but we'll see how that does. And here we have the AC input port that is fused with an on and off switch. So yeah, I'm still pretty impressed how thin this base is. It's very thin. And also here we have the manufacturing sticker, and you guys can see the print volume is 300 by 300 by 400. So yeah, very nice size. And the weight is 14 kilograms, which is about 30 something pounds. So all right, so we're flipped back around. Let's go ahead and look at this X-axis assembly here. So we have the X-axis end stop switch in this little box here. So this is very nicely presented here, very clean. You guys can see this piece here, piece of metal. It's an optical sensor here, and that's the Z-axis end stop switch. There we have the extruder with the Bowden tube coming out and the wiring into the hot end. And we do have a little clips here on the Bowden tube on each side. It's nice to see, so it won't move around. The hot end is quite interesting, especially the casing here. So it appears to be pretty typical Creality stuff in there, just the cover itself is quite different. You guys can see how much air there is on this side. So this whole part here is just for aesthetics. I can stick my finger in there. So yeah, I think it's mostly just for looks. It does look pretty good. We've got a little Creality logo there in the front. So underneath we can see the fan duct for parts cooling and our nozzle there with a silicone sock. So yeah, pretty interesting looking design here for the hot end. We'll see how well it does. So another important thing to note that we haven't really talked about is that we do have tensions here on the belts. Spin this little knob here and it makes the belt tighter or looser. So yeah, this is a really nice little feature here to quickly tighten or loosen your belt. But you got to be really careful because you don't want to over tighten them. If you over tighten them, you're going to have a lot of vibrations in the print. So you want to be barely tight. And it's kind of hard to explain, but just make sure you're not playing music on the belt. So, and same thing for the Y here in the front. We've got the same tensioner here, and we can kind of tell, like, I think mine is a little bit too tight right now. They probably send them like extra tight from the factory because they will loosen up over time just sitting, so that feels a lot better now. But yeah, you can experiment with this, you know, make them tighter and looser and see how your print quality goes. So, and probably the best part of the printer is this really large build plate, which is glass with the perforated dimples there that when they heat up it'll stick, and then when it cools off the print should just pop right off. So, and having the 300 by 300 by 400 is quite a large volume, guys. It should accommodate a lot of the projects that you would do. So in the front here, we got some QR codes, some warnings, more QR codes here. We've seen the tray already, very cool little tray. That's magnetic, so yeah, definitely love that. Very cool design on the whole printer. Got this really futuristic kind of look. Here it looks like we have a sticker for the SD card. Peel that off, and that exposes the slot. And next to that, we got the screen itself, which is a touch screen, and it's quite large. Let's go ahead and peel this protector off of it. A very nice screen for sure. I haven't seen this kind of screen on Creality. I'm pretty excited to see the UI on it. Now, if we go to the right side of the printer, again, check out that really low profile, very nice. Here we have the USB port, the Ethernet port, and also a button that looks like is for the power. And to the left side of the printer, there's not much here, just that spool holder that we saw earlier, which unfortunately doesn't really fold over like it's supposed to, unless I'm not doing something right, but the brace seems to be in the way. And if I go too much this way, then it's not gonna center up well with the filament detector here. And if I go too much that way, it's going to be definitely in the way of wires and things like that. So yeah, not a big deal, just kind of didn't really make sense. Seems like was an afterthought, maybe because of the braces. So yeah, overall, very interesting printer and quite modern feeling. And I can't wait to power it on and try it out. So all right, so let's go ahead and power this thing on. I got the cord plugged in the back, so I'm going to hit the switch back there. And nothing happens. So that means we have to hit this big switch here on the side, the silver one. I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so it boots up, looks like. Got a nice Creality logo there. And there we go. So yeah, looking at this UI here, it looks definitely different than the usual, or at least the more budget printers like the Ender 3 version 2 and things like that. So here it looks like we have a big plus button. I think that's to access the files on the card that we haven't put in yet. But here on the side, we can see we got home, prepare, settings, and leveling. So let's go ahead and go to prepare. And what I want to do first is I want to home the machine and make sure all the axes work. So let's go ahead and hit the home here. And there it goes, it's moving around. So we got the X, the Y, and the Z coming down. Well, actually no, I guess the Z doesn't home with that. So we do have a separate home for the Z. I guess let's try that. I'm gonna go ahead and click that. Okay, so it goes to the middle. And I think the reason it does this is because it has the pressure sensor here in the tip of the nozzle, meaning there's a mechanism inside here that uses a pressure sensor to do the leveling, or once it touches the bed. So yeah, sure enough, that's what it did. It actually touched the bottom of the bed, going back down. Yes, okay, so the pressure sensor in there, it looks like, is working also. And the gap that it's got right now is pretty much perfect. Now, one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, which is quite interesting about this printer, is the bed is actually non-adjustable at all. The way it comes is the way it is. There's no way to, spin some knob here and lift or lower a corner. The way it works is it uses the out-of-bed leveling system to get all the different measurements of the bed, and that's how it knows, when to compensate depending on where it is. So now I think before we activate that, let's go ahead and raise this thing up a bit. What I want to do is I want to preheat the bed itself, but not the nozzle, because we don't want the nozzle to be hot right now for the automatic bed leveling. So let's see, we have some functions here. Axis movement, feed return. Okay, so we got different screens here to choose from on the bottom, and start temperature, preheat ABS or preheat PLA. So yeah, lots of options here. Okay, so it's gonna hit on PLA preheat. We're gonna be 260 on the bed, which we need to not probably preheat this at all, so we'll just go to 0 for the nozzle. Okay, it doesn't like that. Okay, let's just click on cool down and just click on the bed and enter 60. And there we go, now we just have the bed. So yeah, you can click on these little options here to select what you want to, preheat. So very interesting. I definitely like the setup. It looks a lot more mature and a lot more professional. And if we click home, we can see that we can still see, all of our important parameters here. So the bed is set to 60 and it's at 42 right now. So we're going to give it a little time here to get hot. And right here we can see we got the Z axis offset at 0.20. So this must have been set already from the factory maybe. But so let's go ahead and click on the leveling here on the bottom, and you guys can see all of the points here on the bed where it's going to measure, and it looks like it goes in this kind of pattern. So, and I think it's smart enough to know what to do with the nozzle in bed, because it's actually saying here to wait till it gets to 0. So let's just go ahead and start it. So we're going to click on start. Okay, so it actually wants the nozzle to 120 on its own. So yeah, this thing is smart enough to adjust everything as you need it. We didn't have to go back and try to preheat anything. So okay, so we're just waiting for the nozzle to get to 120, and it should go to the next step here. All right, looks like it's moving around again. So it's going to the center, and it's taking the measurement there. And now it looks like it's going to go through the pattern. And you guys can see here it's on number 1. And now it's going to number 2. So the blocks light up as it takes those measurements. And while it's doing that, guys, I want you to hear the printer. Overall, it's pretty quiet, mostly just fan noises. It definitely has silent steppers because the movements are very quiet. So yeah, I wouldn't say ultra silent printer, but definitely on the quiet side. Alright, and I'm guessing that is it for the bed leveling. So because all our blocks here are filled out and I guess colored in, that means it has the measurements saved. Alright, so let's check out the settings here. So in the settings we have PLA preheat, ABS preheat, lighting control. I wonder what kind of lighting we got here. Okay, so there's some LED lights. Okay, I didn't even know about that. If you guys can see maybe over here to the side, there's some lights shining. Very cool. I guess we'll leave those on. One touch shutdown. Okay, so that shuts down the whole thing. I don't know if that was a good idea to do or not, but so yeah, as you guys can see, that's the smart shut off feature that it has, so it can shut off using the software. Let's power it back on here. See, in the settings we were, put the light back on. We can restore factory and restore network. So here we have languages, quite a few, and about the machine, CR-10 smart, firmware, screen version, and the print volume here, 300 by 3x4. So yeah, very nice. Yeah, so pretty actually intuitive UI here, not very hard to use. So we got prepare, axes movements, our filament feeder, and also our temperature that we can preheat. So let's go ahead and preheat for PLA. We'll go back to the feed here, but I think we need to move the Z up a bit. So let's do that. Go back to feed. Let's go ahead and install some filament. So I don't want to print in white on our first prints. So let's just use this red here that I have. Grab our snippers. We do have a little lock you got to unlock. And we'll cut this on an angle. So I definitely love this drawer. So this is a full kilogram spool. And it's gonna sit right here. And man, this bearing is super good. Look how easy that turns. That's crazy. I definitely like that. So yeah, we're gonna go through the filament detector. And it does light up blue here on the top. You guys probably can't see that. And then into the extruder mechanism, which we're gonna unlock in the back. And I'm gonna go ahead and push it all the way through the Bowden tube here and out the hot end. So be the fastest way, and you guys can see it's purging down there. Very easy. And now we just got to not forget to lock in the extruder mechanism. So just let the lever back down, and that should be it. So we should be pretty much ready to go, guys. So let's grab our SD card. Totally forgot that it was in here. So it plugs right here, full size card, very nice. And it's upside down, looks like. Yep, sure enough it is. And it does click in there. So let's go home, and I guess we're gonna push this big plus button here. And looks like there's nothing on here. Well, no big deal. We'll just jump to the computer next, and we'll check out what's on the SD card, and also maybe try to slice something too. All right, guys, so here we are at the computer, and I got the SD card plugged in. Let's go ahead and open it up. And we can see that there are definitely folders in there, and I'm guessing the printer could not read them. So yeah, we got a user manual in PDF form. Software and drivers. So this is, you know, if you want to install the Creality slicer. So this is probably going to be the best bet if you don't already use Cura, but we're going to try Cura here. We got troubleshooting. So let's see what this is about. Okay, so it's a PDF just kind of explaining the trouble you can have and how to resolve it. This could be, I guess, useful if you're having trouble. And then we got model here. And this is where all our G codes are. Look how many there are too. So yeah, and then we got operational video, which is a video from Creality, I guess, which is actually pretty good if you want to, you know, get the overall quick view of it. So let's go to model, and I think what we need to do, I'm not going to print all this. Let's just pick one. I mean, we know the dog pretty well, and it's not that long, 2.5 hours looks like. So let's just do this one. So I'm going to pull it out, and then I'm going to drop it back in here on the top on the front, so hopefully you can see it and read it now. But while we're here, let's go ahead and open up Cura and see if we can't figure out really quick how to slice our own file for this printer correctly. So what you're going to do is you're going to click over here where you got your printer selected. I'm going to add another printer, and then we're going to go to non-network printers. And then we're going to scroll down till we get to Creality. A bunch of printers out there, guys. And obviously they don't have the smart model in here yet, but looking at all these, I'm guessing the 10S is probably going to be our best bet. So let's just go with that. Open it up. So this is basically all of our parameters, 300 by 300 by 400. Everything here looks good. Now the thing that we really need to check is the starting G code. This is going to be the important part. And I don't know why my window is so small. I can't even make it bigger. In any case, guys, hopefully you can see that. Going through all of these G codes, the only difference that I see between this and the G code that they provided with that paper that we saw earlier was this part here on the very top where it says E5000 actually needs to be E500. See, so we're just going to delete 10 and it will be E500 because we got X500, Y500, and Z100, and the E is 500. So this extruder is not at 5,000 but at 500. So that's the only really difference I see. The main thing here is this G28 home. This is like, you know, the main part here I think that they really want you to have. So the printer doesn't go anywhere but stay, I think, in the middle. But in any case, I think that's all we really needed, and this should probably work. So let's just go with that. And we'll go ahead and slice our own print. Let's go ahead and throw in a calibration cube. That's going to be a good little start. So, and if we look at our parameters here, they're probably reset. So we need to go over them really quick. So we'll keep the layer height at 0.2 and everything else looks good here. Now the wall line count should be at 3 because the walls turn out much nicer that way. Top layer should be 5. I'm getting a more solid top. 4 is fine for the bottom, usually for me. Everything else, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. 20% on the infill, let's just change that to 15 so it's a little quicker. 200 on the nozzle and 50 on the bed. I do like 60 on the bed, especially for these types. With the perforated, it seems to stick a little better. Print speed we'll keep at 50 as our base. And yeah, guys, pretty much everything else is the same. Here we have retraction. So because we have Bowden tube, I think we need to change this to 6.5. It's about the usual. And more importantly, this from 45, which is the speed, to 25. I think that's correct. And then we got cooling here, skirt 3, which is what I like. And that's pretty much it. We have special modes here for spiralized mode once we do that. But other than that, that's all I do, guys. I pretty much use just the basic generic settings that every printer pretty much uses. And I like to use this because it kind of gives me a baseline of, you know, depending more on the mechanical abilities of the printer than, you know, trying to finesse it with the slicer. So I believe that basic settings that come with, you know, the printer itself should be already very good. In any case, let's go ahead and slice it. And you guys can see here is 35 minutes. So we're going to save to removable. It's going to go straight to our SD card. And we're not going to eject it yet. And the reason for that is because I'm going to go ahead and slice exactly the same settings here. Obviously, the benchy. So yeah, everything's going to be exactly the same. I'm going to slice that, and you guys can see it's only 2 hours and 2 minutes for this benchy, and we are good to go ejecting it. So let's go back to the printer and print out some of these prints. All right, so let's go ahead and plug in our SD card, and hopefully it works this time. We'll click the plus here, and look at that. We got some files, the ones we sliced and the dog file that we dragged in there. So let's go ahead and start with the Creality dog there that came with the printer, and then we'll print the calibration cube and the benchy for the benchmark. So I'm going to click on the dog and then push play, and it looks like it started. So right now it's heating up the bed. For some reason to only 45, we should probably change that. That's not going to be a good outcome, I don't think. So let's do 55. So it's preheating the bed first, and I'm guessing then it's going to preheat the nozzle. Actually, we should go ahead and probably turn on our little light there. Let's see, where's that at? Oh wait, we can't even do anything now. Okay, well that's kind of weird. I can't do anything. It's stuck in this menu here. Well, hold on. Okay, so if we click here on the any of these things, you have this menu here that you can control certain things. So we got the nozzle, the bed, the print rate, which is how fast it's going, it's at 100 right now. The lighting, we can turn that on, so it does turn on. Fan control is checked, and then we have finished shutdown. So we can actually get the printer to shut down after it finishes. So let's go ahead and click that and see if it actually works. So once it's done, it should just turn it off completely, and I guess that's one of the smart features there. And the best thing probably here is what we have is the z-axis compensation, which is the offset, and we're at 0.20 right now, and we can go up and down. So once the print starts, you know, if it's too low or too high, we can adjust it on the fly right here. All right, yeah, so these things don't do anything on the side when you start printing. And we have the file name here, percentage finished, and the time, which is 2 minutes so far since it started. So looks like we've heated up on the bed. Now the nozzle is starting to heat up. So yeah, as you guys saw there, it took about 2 minutes or so for the bed to heat up. It was completely cold, maybe like 2.5. And the nozzle is also taking its sweet time. So yeah, probably going to be 4 minutes plus on, you know, just getting started. And there it goes. And yeah, it looks like it's definitely like 4.5 minutes for it to start. So let's see what it does. It's probably going to probe the middle. Sure enough, that's what it's doing. Okay, that's way too high. I can see it, so I need to go ahead and lower that down. Probably good right there. Alright, so it is printing. Everything looks good. It did take a little bit to get started, and they did slice this with the Z-hop, which I really don't like, but anyways, it is what it is. I guess we'll see what comes out. Yeah, see if I can zoom you guys in a bit more. But yeah, overall, it looks like no issues, and it's doing a great job. So there is a little bit of sound from the motors, but it's very ever so slight. So I'm gonna bring the microphone in again. So yeah, pretty quiet. Mostly I would say fan noise is quite prominent here. All right, so we're gonna let this print out, and we'll see how the little dog comes out. All right, guys, so our first print is done with this little doggy here. So the build plate here is cooled off completely. So let's go ahead and see how easy it is to take it off. And it's okay, sure enough, it just popped right off. So this stuff works really good. And our dog turned out really nice. So let's take a closer look here. And look at those reflections. Very nice layer adhesion. Notice how smooth everything sits. Now there's a little bit of stringing, but that's just in the slicing, but it's very minor. Here a little bit on the top too. Nothing too serious. So yeah, the layers went down beautifully. You guys can see that reflection there. Pretty impressive actually. But this is a CR-10 Smart, so we do expect good quality, and we're definitely getting that Creality quality here. Very cool. So it does have a raft. Let's see how easy that comes off. Alright, so they sliced this thing really nice. Comes off easy. Yeah, very happy about this. So this gives me a lot of hope for this printer to be a pretty solid printer so far. Now, speaking about pretty solid printer, it did have an issue that came up, which is the display here. I don't know if you guys can tell, but there's some kind of weird artifacting going on this side over here. Maybe just a defective display. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. But it's still usable. You can go through everything. Just the display itself, something's going on with it. In any case, I'm going to change out the filament to a silky black that I normally do, and we're going to print out a 3D benchy and a calibration cube, and we'll take a closer look at those. Alright, so I loaded up some black filament, so let's go ahead and start the calibration. So I'm pretty curious if this is going to work. Hopefully our CR-10S, I think is what it was, profile there was going to work, but I guess we'll find out here in a second. Alrighty. So far so good. Okay, so it's purging as normal. So the offset looks to be just right also. Alright. It might be a little too close. Let's see. Should probably go up just a little bit. So I am quite a bit lower than I was earlier, so I went back to 0.2, and that seems to be right. So that's what it was from the start. So I guess I'll leave it at that. Alright, well, everything looks good, and it seems like the start worked just fine. So yeah, I'm gonna let this print out, and we'll also print out a benchy, and then we'll take a closer look at them. Alright, so our calibration cube is done, and the benchy also, and they both turned out really good. So let's go ahead and look at the calibration cube here first. So here we have the x-axis, looks pretty good. There's some slight vibrations, but not too bad at all. Then we have the y, which we do have a little bit of vibrations there, and that's probably because our belt is too tight. So I did loosen it for the benchy. We'll see if it got any better. Our X wall here, pretty good. We can see the infill a little bit through it, and the Y wall, we can see the little vibration there. So yeah, overall very nice, very solid. The top and the bottom, which I changed the layer height as it was printing. So let's go ahead and look at the benchy. I haven't pulled it off yet. See how easy it is. Oh, that's amazing. I'm still surprised how well these beds work. They grip when they're hot and they just let go when they're cool off. So, and you guys know that benchies tend to pop off the build plate. So yeah, you guys can see it turned out really good. Got the seam here. Overall very solid and very smooth layering, guys. So we can see a little bit of vibration still in the Y, but you know, this bed is large and it's a piece of glass, so I guess it's quite expected, but it did seem to get smaller because I did loosen the belt a bit. But yeah, it looks great. Got the box here, also looks pretty good. Chimney looks nice. Everything is round. We do have a little bit of stringing, very small. We got 6.5 retraction right now, so maybe we should bump it up to 7, but it's not bad at all. It's just very fine here. And this printer seems to be really delivering on the print quality, and I honestly don't expect anything less from Creality. And they've been doing this long enough, and they've been giving us pretty much excellent print quality with most of their machines. You know, they do have to be adjusted correctly and somewhat tuned. But from my experience so far, I've been very successful with Creality machines and getting good prints. Now, another thing I wanted to mention to you guys is about the screen again. It does dim down when you don't touch it for a while, so if I touch it, it gets brighter. So I'm going to go ahead and print out a few more models, including spiralized mode. And also we'll talk about the strengths and maybe some weaknesses of this printer. So a little update on the auto shutoff. It actually works. You just have to wait about 5 minutes or so until it shuts itself off. So, but yeah, I guess to power it back on, I'm just gonna click the switch here on the side. Okay, yeah, there we go. You guys can see the screen's still messed up. So yeah, very cool that the auto shutoff does work. All right, so we do have another issue here, and I'm printing the spaceship in spiralized mode. As you guys can see, there's like these steps, so the printer is pausing and then continuing, pausing, continuing. So yeah, it's almost like it doesn't have enough memory or something. But I did have the same problem on an Ender 3 Max before, and someone suggested to turn off the power recovery. So whenever you lose power, it remembers the Z height. So I guess in this spiralized mode, these newer machines are not able to use power recovery at the same time as, you know, using the spiralized mode in the slicer. So let's go ahead and cancel this print because it's obviously a fail here. I'm gonna click stop, confirm, it moves to the side. All right, so I'm not sure exactly if we have this setting or not. Hopefully you guys can see this, but let's go to settings. Let's see, machine, language, device. I don't really see anything. Okay, so this is bed leveling. So yeah, I don't really see this feature here. It doesn't give me a pretty deep configuration anywhere that I can see. So yeah, it looks like we're out of luck with this thing, which is kind of unfortunate, to be honest. We should be able to turn on recovery. We don't even have control for the filament detector or simple things like that. So yeah, even though this UI here looks nice, it's quite limiting here compared to the old school printers, like let's say the Ender 3 Max, which still has the old school layout. There's probably a workaround. Maybe there'll be an update that, you know, you'd be able to fix this issue, but right off the bat here, I don't really see any options to make this work. So I guess we're gonna have to skip the spiralized printing and go to my final thoughts. All right, and so here we are with the prints that we printed. So let's go ahead and look at what we have. So we've seen the little dog, we've seen the benchy and the calibration cube. Those all turned out very well. So let's go with the frog here. So I like printing this print because it's quite small and petite and has quite a bit of detail here around like the fingers and the legs and the arms. And you guys can see how well the layers are sitting on this frog. So very nice and smooth, beautiful print. We got the stitching right on the back. So as far as the layers go down, I mean, this is definitely Creality good layers, and even here underneath his chin, it's really nice and clean. So tiny bit of stringing, just barely, so nothing serious. Which, by the way, everything was printed at 0.2 at 50 millimeters a second. It looks really, really good. Also impressive how well it sticks to the bed and pops right off when it cools off. So another thing I really like printing is this bearing, and this just shows, you know, how accurate the printer is, because if this can spin, because it's functional, that means the printer is doing really good. And yeah, I was really impressed with this thing. It spun right up basically. So I didn't have to even put a wrench in it or anything. I just kind of wiggled it a bit and it started spinning. So yeah, very accurate, and it's very smooth, like probably one of the best I've seen in a while. So yeah, this printer has definitely got accuracy. Now I think one thing, you know, that kind of is obvious, if you guys can see, there's a little bit of under extrusion here and there. So yeah, I think the printer is under extruding just a tiny bit, and I have a feeling that gives it the accuracy too, because these gears are actually a little bit looser than usual too. So yeah, but yeah, very smooth, and it just worked right off the build plate. Very nice. Now the other print I printed was the shark, and this is a pretty cool print because it's multiple pieces that come together, and you guys can see there's quite a few pieces that had to join and nothing broke loose. The bed holds on pretty well. It's quite impressive how well it works, and it just pops right off when it cools. But yeah, this little shark here turned out really nice. Again, the layers go down beautifully. So 0.2 layer height, still looking very, very nice. Now the shark does have a mouth that's supposed to open. I haven't tried to open it yet. Let's go ahead and grab these snippers and see if we can maybe pry it open. Okay, so it looks like, okay, wow, that was easy. So the very tip of the middle tooth there was kind of grabbing on, and then it just popped open. All right, well, that was very easy. Normally it's a little harder than that. So yeah, again, this printer is very accurate, and yeah, the mouth works perfect. Yeah, the shark turned out great. And as you guys saw earlier, our spaceship did not print because of the spiralace problem. So the astronaut and his buddy, the Squirtle there, are pretty sad. But that's okay, not everything goes to plan always. Now let's look at the Squirtle here. So this is in silky silver, and you guys can see this, very nice. We do have a little bit of vibrations, but other than that, the print looks quite stunning. And this is a very, very revealing kind of filament. So yeah, you would be able to see everything here. And again, I can see a tiny bit of under extrusion here and there, but it's ever so slightly. So I don't know if it's just the printer needs to be calibrated a bit, or maybe the extruder assembly that I talked about earlier having issues before, maybe is not, you know, doing its job. And we got the astronaut here, our last print, also very nicely printed. Layers sit beautifully, and you guys can see maybe around this M, usually there's vibration, but it's very clean. So the helmet here looks good. Overall, pretty good print. But looking at it, you know, pretty close, it does feel under extruded somewhat, and that kind of shows up in the print a little bit. It just feels like it has a little bit more layers than it needs to, but of course this is 0.2, so. Looking at the bottom here, guys, this is all we had, just these few ridges here to hold on to the bed, and it did held on no issues and printed out the whole print. A very nice print overall. We do have a little bit something here. Unfortunately, the astronaut is sad because he doesn't have a spaceship, but overall the printer did an excellent job with putting the layers down. So obviously you guys probably already know where I'm gonna go with this thing. I obviously like the printer. I like the overall unboxing and the ease of putting it together, and the material quality on the printer is top notch, I would say. And Creality does a great job with, you know, the overall feel and polish for what these printers are. Now, one thing about this printer that is kind of a little confusing is the name Smart, and I guess I kind of see where the smartness comes. It does have this external switch where it can power itself off. I guess that's Smart Power Resume. I mean, that's smart, but just about every printer has that. I guess the best smart part about it, if that's smart, is maybe the out of bed leveling, and mine works perfect. So it did probe the bed, and then when it was printing something large, I could see the z-axis adjusting as it was going around. So that part works just fine, and honestly perfectly, because I mean it's literally perfect no matter where it's on the bed. Now another feature that probably makes this printer smart is the Wi-Fi capabilities, or the Wi-Fi box I think is what it's called, that's inside this printer, and it's Creality's basically way of connecting to it. So I think that part's pretty intense, and it even has Bluetooth and things like that that you can really access the printer through your phone and your computer or wherever you are. So I'm not too much of a software guy, so I don't get into those things. I'm more of a hardware person, so I like simplicity in a way where the printer just works as you use it without, you know, giving you a headache or making you trying to figure out certain things. I understand the Wi-Fi and the convenience of it, but I still like the simplicity. So this is why I still use SD card to slice and move files around. But yeah, if you are interested in a more advanced kind of connection, this printer definitely has that. So let's go over really quick of the great things about it. So it does shut off when it's done, so that's pretty smart. The design of this thing is amazing. I love the overall polished look and how it's built, and the profile is very thin. The 300 by 300 by 400 print volume is amazing. I love the build plate with the perforated glass, works excellent. Also like these adjustable tensions for the belts on the X and Y. The little cubby here with the tools, very nice. We also get silent steppers, so the printer is actually very quiet. But with that said, the fans are a little too loud in my opinion. We do get a full-size SD card slot. That's cool, and a pretty awesome large touchscreen display that mine has a little bit of an issue, as you guys saw there. And also I do like the sturdiness with the braces there in the back that keeps the printer very solid. So printing something really tall is not an issue with vibrations, not that we tested that out. But some of the things that, you know, maybe are not that great is the extruder assembly here and the way it works. I mean, it seems to work fine, but I would have preferred the older style, maybe even like a dual gear extruder. That would have been, you know, my preference. Also, don't really love the spool holder because it's a little flimsy. I do like the spinning part because it's really smooth, but the flimsiness of it is not great. The lights under here are kind of cool, but they're very limiting and they don't really light up the printer or the printing area as well as you would hope for. So yeah, it's, I guess, okay. And probably one of the bigger negatives is the fans are just too loud. So it kind of makes the whole silence experience not that great. And last but not least, you guys see here, we cannot print spiralized mode. So something with the software there. In any case, guys, as you can see here, I think the printer overall is great for a person that knows what they're getting. But I think if you're, you know, a little new to 3D printing and not too sure what to get, you might want to skip this one, not because it's not a great printer, just because it's a little more complicated than it needs to be to enjoy 3D printing from your first time. So if you're already seasoned and you know what you're doing, I'm sure you can, you know, figure this thing out and get it exactly how you want it. But yeah, guys, this is the CR-10 Smart. So hopefully this video was useful to somebody. It is a bit unfortunate that we weren't able to print everything we wanted, but sometimes that's the way it goes. So if you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. And if you want to get a printer like this for yourself, check out the links in the description. And also go check out my other videos. I have quite a few 3D printing unboxing and setting up videos that I think you'll find something interesting there. And also, if you made it to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you for watching and supporting this channel. I really do appreciate it. So as always, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.